Welcome to Healing Your Family Legacy, here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Innovative, evidence-based recovery that helps to identify intergenerational trauma, allowing for freedom and embracement of the healing process. Today, episode 86, Relationships and Recovery, Part 5. And now your host, Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee.
This is Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee, helping you heal your family legacy. Welcome back. And today I wanted to finish talking about relationships and, tying all of this together with dating. Last time I left off with when you're dating somebody, you look for the things that you don't like about them. And that sounds counterintuitive because when you're dating someone, it's like you're usually really interested in them and people are talking about all the things that they have in common. And, it's like your brain is just getting overloaded with happy chemicals. So, to think about, I also need to be looking at the things I don't like. It's like, that's really crucial. Because those are the things that destroy relationships. And, I have heard people say many, many times in therapy, but not just therapy, in day-to-day life where, people are having conversations about their experiences with each other and saying, well, you knew this when you married me. Well, you knew this after, when we were dating. And that's critical because, I've oftentimes said, unless there's a breach in the trust of a relationship, like an outside relationship that one of the other participates in, it's those things that are, nagging at you, like we used to call leaving the cap off the toothpaste. And that was an irreconcilable difference. But those things add up. They tend to add up. So they're really big after a while. And every time you see that cap off the toothpaste, you think they're doing this at me because they know I hate it. And it doesn't take anything to put that cap back on the toothpaste. And if this is all that, if this is how they feel about me, then, who knows what else they're doing and who knows what else they'll do that they know I don't like. And so, we all make up stuff every day, all day long. We make up what people are thinking, what people are doing, why they're doing what they're doing. Most of the time we're not aware of it. But when it comes to relationships, we make stuff up about the other person. And, it's important to identify, wait, I'm making this up. It's not real. They're not doing this at me. And so to identify at least 5 things that you don't like about the person that bothers you before you take it to the next level after 90 days is really vital to your health and well-being. And, it's been interesting to me that the people, I mentioned this last time, that the people who have done this, who have been my clients, every one of them have come back and said, wow, I am so glad I did that because the energy between us initially was so strong. I just thought, oh, this is the one. And then I did the 90-day rule, even though it was hard, even though that we found ourselves saying, well, it's been 75 days. Do you think Dr. Bevan-Lee would be okay? It's like, okay, that's another story. But so they do it anyway. They do the 90 days. And then after the 90 days, they go, oh, wait, I really don't think I could live with this. Now, the part that is important in that is think. It's like, I don't think that I could live with this. So that person is making a decision based on their brain, not on how they feel. Because, being in a relationship, a primary relationship where, it could develop into long-term living together, marriage, kids, the whole thing. It's a business, people. Okay? It's a business. And yes, if you're strongly attracted to somebody, okay, you know that. But then you have to look at, okay, what do they bring? What do I bring? What don't I like about this person? And, it's like, for me, if someone's attracted to me, they have to understand that, I have some learning disabilities, and one of them is it's really hard for me to identify things that are out of order because my brain accommodates it so quickly. So if a fork is sitting out when it should be in a drawer, I'll look at that fork, and if I don't immediately put it back into the drawer, it could sit there for weeks because my brain accommodates it. Kind of like, oh, that fork is there, and it's part of the table, or it's part of the shelf, right? And I know that is a learning disability, and it's something I have to really work on. And I have worked on it, just as an aside. I've worked on it over my life because I just couldn't deal with all the things that were out of order all the time. And it turns out that I got a gift from that. And that gift is that I am not a procrastinator. I don't procrastinate hardly ever. I mean, I can't remember the last time I put something off. Why is that? Because I accommodate it. I accommodate that that's just how it is right then. And then I don't do it, or I forget to do it, or it just becomes part of the wallpaper. And so, but once in a while it happens. Not the big things, but the little things. And so if you're going to be in a relationship with me, you just have to know that. And if it drives you too crazy, then you're probably not going to be able to manage it. And I certainly won't like being nagged at about it. And so if I'm in the beginning of a relationship and somebody who, there's a lot of good energy and all that, but they notice this, that, it's like you seem a little bit disorganized. And I would say, yes, I am. And this is what I do about it. And so, there you have it. I'm doing the best I can. And I've become a person who doesn't procrastinate if something needs to be done. And then if I notice, because now, see, I'm noticing. I'm not all wrapped up with, oh, when are we going to get together and do the thing? It's like I am thinking about that. Okay, how are they going to react to this? Because it'll happen, right? And if they bring it up again and again, I'll know that, okay, at the end of 90 days, I'll say, everything's going okay. But that organizational thing I explained to you back in the beginning when you brought it up? And I told you what I do to deal with it. And, I noticed that you brought it up 13 times since then. I can tell you right now that bringing that up to me is not going to work out. Because the story I make up is that you didn't hear what I had to say about it in the first place. And B, it makes me feel sad. Makes me feel bad. And I don't like that. So, are you willing to just embrace that? So I'm asking this. It's like, are you willing to embrace that about me and just accept that I am taking care of that business the best I can? Or is that something that just drives you so crazy that you're going to have to bring it up every single time? And I'll make a decision about whether or not I want to go forward in the relationship. That might sound small, but think about it. Think about that yourself. So somebody keeps nagging you about the same thing over and over and over again, year after year. Is that going to really work out for you? Well, considering that I know that this is not a dress rehearsal, it's my life, and this is it, no do-overs, I think, yeah, I know I won't like that. And it'll be a source of conflict. And there will be conflict anyway, but I'm not going to take on a situation that I know is rife with conflict. So when I'm looking at the 5 things I don't like about you, if we're at the end of 90 days and you say there's nothing that I have found that I don't like about you, trust me, that isn't true. They haven't been paying attention, or they've, just said to themselves, oh, it's not that big of a deal, or whatever. Nobody's perfect. We all have those experiences. I remember, a guy, because, interestingly enough, men like this little thing better than women. I have noticed that when the men come back to me and say, I did that 90-day rule, I'm so happy. And the women come back, and once in a while they say, I did that 90-day rule, and makes me really glad I did. Most of them say, wow, it's like, I made it to 70, but I just couldn't go any farther. Women, here's the fact of life. For most women, we're afraid that if we don't become sexual with somebody as soon as they want to, they'll leave. So we've been trained that way. We've been taught that way. I don't care where you grew up, at least in our society. The message has always been, you better be sexy, you better be available, you better be right there when he wants it, or he'll leave. Okay? Aside from that, though, I just remember this guy that I had, that I worked with a long time ago, who, was really capable, competent, successful man. And he had started dating because he'd been divorced, so he'd start dating again. And he met this woman that he really liked. And, so he said, do I have to do the 90-day rule? I said, hey, it's up to you. You've heard me talk about it. You know what I think about it and why you do it. So he said, well, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do the 90-day rule. And, he'd come back and he'd say, oh, we have so much fun and we have all these things that we enjoy doing. And, she's so able and she's so competent and, successful in her profession. And it's so great to have somebody who doesn't need me for my money or for anything else because they have their own. And, and then, I heard about this. And, one day he came back and he said, well, it's been 90 days. And I said, well, are you going forward? And he goes, no. And I said, why not? And what he said to me was, he said, that part about her being successful enough that she doesn't need me, even for my money? Yeah. He says, well, she works 18 hours a day and she's on call. So she's not really terribly available, because we might be out golfing and she gets a call and she has to leave and go take care of it. And he said, I know that I wouldn't like that. That's the only thing I don't like about her, but it's big enough that I know that I wouldn't enjoy that over the long term. And so he was sad about it, and so was she, but she understood that. And he said, I really like her. We have so much fun, but I know there'll be someone else. And sure enough, there was. But, men have told me that they like the 90-day rule because they feel like there's an expectation on them to be sexual immediately and to be the most amazing sexual partner in the world. And, they have told me over and over again, it's such a relief to not have that over their head. Because, when they're thinking about a relationship, they're thinking about, what happens? How does this look long term? when they're thinking about it. Now, you'll notice I'm talking about thinking. Long-term relationships are a business. You do this, I do that, I contribute this, you contribute that. It gets even more complicated when there's children. Okay, who's taking care of the kids? When are we taking care of the kids? Who's getting up at night? It's all negotiation and compromise, just like a business. And it's a lifelong business. It's one that you don't actually retire from. You know, I mean, that's what most people, when they get into a marriage, they don't say, well, you know, I mean, as a joke, they say, well, this will be good for my first marriage. Maybe some people actually do that, but most people, when they think about getting married or moving in together, they're thinking about their life partner. And so you think about it in terms of business. And when you do that, you're more likely to get a partner who is that you are happy to work with, that you feel like you can bring up issues to, that you can bring up, that you can get through hard times with. Okay, like, my wife, who we've been together for 19 years, and, she had a bad accident, and, it's like it changed the whole, the next 3 months of our lives. And I turned into a caretaker, and, I was taking care of her, and she takes care of herself just fine most of the time. But, it changed things. But, it changed things, and we hardly missed a beat. Because we both did the 90-day rule. And we know what troubles us or what was troublesome about the other one. And we were just quiet about it because we embraced it. Now, there's some things that you just aren't going to embrace. And if you do, you're delusional. Okay? Like, I've heard it all from people who it's like, oh, well, I want to have an open relationship. People, it's never worked. And, I had this argument with a person one time who was in a polyamorous relationship, which means that there were more than two people in the relationship. And I said, and she was in seeing me. So obviously things weren't working out so good. And she was talking about some of her issues in it. And I just sat there and listened to her for a while. And I said, it's not going to work. And she said, it is working though. We're talking about it. I'm here, la, la, la. And she said, so I don't know how you can say it's not going to work. I said, well, how long have you been in this polyamorous relationship? A year. Oh, okay. I've never seen it work long term. It's too complicated, and someone will be left out and feeling like they're being betrayed. It always happens that way. So we're kind of geared to pair up. And when we do, and we do it knowing full well what our situation is, who we're with, who they really are, as much as you can know that after 90 days, because there will always be things that you don't know about until later. Okay? You may not know that, they're a terrible cook because they might have a few things they do really well, and they've cooked those things for you, and you think, oh, this is great. But they might be a really terrible cook once they get past those 5 things. I mean, there are things that will happen. You don't know how each other's going to parent, no matter what, no matter how much you talk about it. Parenting is a big issue. And if you want to have children, you want to make sure that you're in a relationship with somebody who also wants to have children. And, I can pretty much tell you that most of the time it's like, we need to do this 50-50, and, we'll do it that way. And, we won't do it the way our parents did. Most people do it their parents' way, or they do it the opposite. And they get it all worked out, and then the child comes, and you never know what's going to happen. That it's like, putting a child in there will absolutely throw a curveball. And so if you've already been able to talk about things and you've already dealt with some conflict in the relationship, you're probably more likely to be able to deal with having children now in the relationship. The first one will be the most challenging because that's the one that's going to change everything. And then the next one changes it in a different way, and the next one changes it in a different way, and so on. But if you're talking to each other, if you're not all whacked out because they leave the cap off the toothpaste, or, they're disorganized all the time. It's like, if you're not getting all whacked out about that because you know who you got, then you're able to deal with those conflicts and those issues around parenting a lot easier. And situations come up. You want to, I said this 10 times, I'll say it again, because people say, oh yeah, I got that. Okay, we're on the same page. I heard you. But then they go out and do it the same way that they've always done it. So you have to just stop and think, okay, when I start dating again, when I start, having relationships again and being interested in, meeting someone again, I can't do it the same way. And, I used to say when I would talk about codependence and what, codependence is about, I would say, if you feel so strongly attracted to somebody that you just feel like, oh, this is going to be the best thing ever, chances are you're just repeating yourself. Turn around and walk away or run away. Because if it feels that great that soon, it's just familiarity. Or it's just sexual energy. And, sexual energy has a way of changing through a person's life. It's not always going to be that way. And so as much energy as there might be now, it'll change over time. You want to be sure that the person you're with, that you have all that energy about, it's like those 5 things that you discover after 3 months, that those 5 things are something you can embrace. Because those 5 things probably won't change. I mean, if you're lucky, they'll say, okay, well, I can see where that would be troublesome and I'm willing to work on it. Or they say, that's all I can do. That really is the best I can do. Like for me, I cannot rearrange my mind to be that organized. What I can do is not be a procrastinator, because that is a behavior. What's going on in my brain, that's not a behavior, it's just my brain. And so if that organizational thing happens, I can't stop it, but I can decide I won't be a procrastinator. So when I see that fork laying there, I'm just going to go over, pick it up, and put it where it belongs, because the next time I see it, it'll be accommodated. It'll just be part of the scenery. Okay? So, if you, when you're looking at your partner and you say, I really don't like the way they chew their food. Well, okay, I don't think that's going to change. People try. Sometimes they try and, okay, well, I can do different chewing. Well, good luck with that. But it is so a brain issue. And it might sound like a behavior, but the only way you can really change that is to be reminded of it every time you put something in your mouth. And after a while, trust me, that feels like nagging. So you want to be sure that those things that trouble you, you can bring it up, say, well, the things I found that I don't like are these. You say what they are, not in a critical way, not in a judgmental way. There's like, here's my issue. It's about you. I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like this, I don't like that. And the person might say, well, those are things that I don't want to change. Then you ask yourself, well, can I embrace them? That means, like I said, that means I notice them, they're there, but I made a choice to be in this relationship anyway. And so when I see it happen, I just need to be quiet and move on. If these aren't things that are harmful to me, but they just bug me, then I just need to grow up and realize that there's no perfect person. And if I want somebody just like me, then I just need to be by myself, because there isn't anybody just like me. And by the way, I am not perfect either. So, there you have it. So, those are really the main points that I want to make about dating and being in a relationship, because it's the beginning. This is where you create the foundation of a lifelong relationship with another human being. And you want to know that who you got is who they really are. And you can't know that, unless you're 16. Most 16-year-olds aren't listening to me anyway, because I'm an adult. But, when you're 16, there's just not a whole lot more to know besides who you got sitting there. Yeah, there might be family secret they're dealing with or whatever, but, it's like when you're young, you're a teenager, who you're dating is pretty much who you got. So I'm talking to adults who have had experiences in relationships, and they want to make better choices. They don't want to find themselves in the same situation. That's mainly who I'm talking to. So remember, 90 days, discover the 5 things you don't like about the person. Make sure that, they're noticing the things that they don't like about you. Have a conversation about it before you move on to the next level. And be honest with yourself about whether or not you can live with it. I'm surprised at how delusional people can be. I know I can live with this, and the back of their head going, yeah, they'll change. No. So, 90 days, and you'll be better off for it. Okay? See you next week.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Healing Your Family Legacy here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. Healing Your Family Legacy is copyright 2022, Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.
Hey friends, Sean here, your Experience of the Soul producer. I want to take a moment to tell you about something truly exciting. The SoulWorks online community, created by your host, Cynthia Alice Anderson, and available on the Mighty Networks app. If you're looking for a place where you can explore your spiritual path, connect with others, and grow in a meaningful way, then this is for you. SoulWorks is so much more than an online community. It's a safe, inclusive space for spiritual exploration, self-discovery, and personal transformation. Inside the community, you'll find everything from uplifting spiritual studies to soul-centered growth practices, meditations, affirmations, and so much more. It's a space where you'll always be supported and never judged. The best part, membership is free. You'll have access to powerful resources, inspiring content, and a supportive group of like-minded people who are all on their own unique spiritual journeys. And if you're ready to dive deeper, there are premium options available to enhance your experience with a live Monday night talk series and extended, deeper meditations. If you're seeking a place to connect, grow, and nurture your soul, we would love to have you join us in the SoulWorks community and see where this journey can take you. Visit my.soulworkscommunity.com today.